All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Today, me and Nick are doing 2022 preview and prediction for the Vanderbilt Commodores. Look at this coaching staff: Clark Leah, 2-10 in his first year, the former Notre Dame coordinator. He is an alumni of the school, so that figures to make him get a longer leash, I would imagine, in trying to rebuild this program. Joey Lynch, he spent last year as a quarterback coach. He'll be promoted to offensive coordinator. Nick Howell spent the past 6 years at UVA. He's going to come over and take the defense. Season headline for Vanderbilt, Nick, was, they got a new logo. That's very impressive. And then 32nd ranked recruiting class, which is actually pretty solid. Clark Leah coming in and making an impact. I'd say it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, the recruiting class is actually something really positive for the Vanderbilt Commodores. I think NIL will really benefit this school considering the type of money they have as a private school, and in the future, their recruiting classes could potentially get stronger and stronger as the time goes on. But right now, a 32 ranked recruiting class is not too bad at all for the Commodores.
Looking at this offense, they averaged a little under 16 points per game last year. They do get 7 starters back. Mike Wright and Ken Seals, they're going to battle for the QB spot. It's probably the most intriguing part of this team, really. Seals, he's shown good velocity and accuracy at times. Wright's more of a dual threat guy. They both played last year, combined for 13 touchdowns and 14 interceptions, only 189 yards per game as a team through the air, and then a 55.4% completion rate as a team. That's obviously not really good, but I'm actually kind of intrigued by these two quarterbacks, but I think they might have something here.
Yeah, I think Ken Seals is a solid guy. I like his arm. 1,100 yards last year through the air, good for 5.3 yards per attempt. Solid guy. I think he's not a bad quarterback. I think he's a good thing to have if you're Vanderbilt. I also think Mike Wright. I like his dual threat ability. Certainly can run on the ground, 376 yards on the ground, and a touchdown for him last year. I like this sort of 2 QB option they have. I think Seals wins out the starting job for me right now if I had to pick one. But I think both of them are very interesting, and both of them get the starting nod for sure.
Seals had some pretty impressive games back in 2020, his freshman season. So we'll see if they can build off what was not a good season last year. I think the backfield's pretty encouraging, though. Ramon Davis only played 3 games last year, Temple transfer. Him being injured allowed Rocco Griffin to get on the field. 5'9", 203, 517 yards, 4 touchdowns. Patrick Smith as well. Pretty respectable backfield trio here. Only 123 yards per game on the ground. Looking at the offensive line, though, it's really going to be a unit that's going to have to give these guys some push. They lose Tyler Steen to Alabama. He transfers out. They add tackle Jacob Brammer from UNT. Senior Julian Hernandez, 6'4", 304, and Ben Cox, 6'5", 310. And then Xavier Castillo, 6'5", 330, enters his second year. It's a pretty nice size on the interior, but of course, this offensive line, it was a pretty solid unit last year, but obviously they're going to have to continue to get much better. Try to make this the focal point of the football team because Clark Leah comes from Notre Dame where they live and die in the trenches. So that's going to be a big focus here, I think. Over time, you're really going to see the O-line and D-line progress a good bit.
I like this offensive line. I think it's a solid group. I think the size is perfect for the interior. I think they can step up and kind of work on this in general and kind of develop. I think once they start building the offensive line, they can kind of develop the offense from there, and that's a good starting point.
Look at the pass-catching core. Will Shepard, one of the bright performers for them last year. 43 receptions for 577 yards, 4 touchdowns. Kyle Logan, he had 1 reception last year. And then Devin Brody, he was the 4th leading receiver a season ago. That's the trio right there. They added 2 freshmen, in Jaden McGowan, Devon Walker. I don't really know what to say about this receiving core. Outside Will Shepard's pretty good. No one else was really productive, though. Some young talent that's going to arrive and probably make an impact. What are your thoughts on this pass-catching core? Because I don't have a lot of notes on any of them.
Will Shepard, 13.4 yards per catch, 4 touchdowns last year. Solid numbers. I think he's a decent guy. I expect him to get targets a lot early on. Kind of like the way he fits in the wide receiver slot area. I think they also bring in some good guys, some freshmen here. Maybe these guys get some early catches early on, get them involved, get them comfortable with the program.
Vanderbilt last year only had 77 yards against Georgia. They lost 62-0. I don't care if you're playing the 85 Bears defense. An SEC program needs to do better than that. They can't even get a first down in garbage time. What can they do to be better than that? At least hit the century marks. I don't care who you're playing when you're in this conference. You got to do more than 77 total yards over 60 minutes.
I really think the key is going to be coming from the backs this year. If this offense wants to have success, they're going to have to find a way to ground and pound it. I think the offensive line is going to need to step up and create holes for this. I think they have a solid trio there with the running backs. I think they have some good options there. I think Griffin really showed last year. His average wasn't great, 3.6 yards per carry, but I think that if they keep giving him attempts, he's going to eventually break free and get some yards as well. And I think that the way that they have sort of built this running back core, I think Davis is solid as well. And I think Patrick Smith has the potential. We saw from him last year, 360 yards on the ground, 4.4 yards per carry. They have to stick to the running core and maybe find a way to get the top wide receiver involved with Will Shepard, but the talent is just really lacking there. So, maybe they try to bring in some different quarterback options, kind of do a dual threat type of thing with the 2 quarterbacks they have with Seals and Wright. Maybe get Wright involved and have him sort of play on a third down type of role. But I don't really know what to expect out of this offense this year.
Now looking at the defense, they get six starters back on a unit that slightly progressed in Leah's first year. Derek Mason was defensive coach, and his units here at Vandy were pretty good and respectable. You know, it took some time, though. I think the same can be said about Leah here. Of course, he was the Notre Dame defensive coordinator, very successful there. The defensive line was not. Anthony Orjai had 92 tackles, 13 tackles for loss, emerged big time as a playmaker for them. Him and Michael Owusu form a solid outside linebacking group. Owusu had 43 stops, 5 tackles for loss. They add Kane Peterson from Clemson at inside linebacker. And then Ethan Barr last year was second on the team with 85 tackles. He also had 3 picks. Braden Baps, he converts from tight end to defensive end. That's not good when you're having to do that. No 300-pounders on this D-line, so they're not going to win with size, and skill isn't much of a question. They do add Miles Cecil from Cal Poly. It's clearly a work in progress, but this year it's going to be a unit that gets worn down, Nick.
I thought RIG might get a transfer out of here. He had a super solid year, 92 total tackles, 13 tackles for loss, plus a sack and a forced fumble. I thought he might have picked up a move to a different program in FBS, but he ends up staying, solid linebacker. I like what he can do. And Owusu is also talented as well. 43 total tackles last year, 5 tackles for loss, 2 pass breakups, and another forced fumble as well. Those two together are solid linebackers. I really like what they have on film. I think they're super talented there. The rest of this defensive line, it definitely is going to struggle this year. The size really isn't there. They're going to get beat in the trenches very easily, and some of these guys have to step up. I don't really know if they will. Look at a guy like Nate Clifton. I think he has some potential. 35 total tackles last year, a tackle for loss as well for him, and a pass breakup. Maybe they get some more production out of him.
Davian Davis, Malik Langham, those guys are 2 seniors. Elijah McAllister as well. So they got 4 seniors. On my depth chart, I see nothing but seniors in the front 7. So that's encouraging, at least to have a little bit of experience. But overall, I don't expect great production from them this year. When you look on the depth chart, though, you see plenty of freshmen, Nick, not just in the front 7, but also in the secondary. Clark Lee, I think he's really going to allow this defense to turn around. It's going to take some time, though, like we just mentioned. But look in the secondary. You can't beat them, join them. Jeremy Lucien arrives from UConn, 114th ranked secondary last year. 65% completion rate. They do get back. This secondary did snag 13 interceptions last year. Only had 2 in 9 games in 2020. So obviously, Leah comes in and he opens the door for some of these guys to make some plays and let their talents shine. But overall, as a group, especially in the back end, this defense was very encouraging. Maybe 3 to 4 years down the stretch, but in the short term, nothing to be excited about.
Jalen Mahoney's a solid guy. I like what he can do. 52 total tackles, 4.5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 2 interceptions, 3 pass breakups, fumble recovery, and a forced fumble for him. Max Worship, another guy, 52 total tackles as well, 3 tackles for loss, 2 interceptions, plus a pass breakup. I like those two. I think Maloney and Worship, they are solid guys. They have a lot of experience. They come back this year. I think they fit in really well there. Both seniors come leadership. But this secondary is poor across the board, right? This is nothing to write home about. This is a bad secondary. I do like the returning of those 2 veterans, Mahoney and Worship. I think those guys are solid. I think they should end out their careers on a positive note, but in general, the secondary is poor.
Look at the schedule preview and the prediction. Like we mentioned at the top of the show, 32nd ranked recruiting class is certainly encouraging. If Derek Mason can produce an NFL linebacker, beat Georgia, and compete with good defenses on a year-end basis, and even have a winning season, I think Clark Leah can too. But it won't happen in 2022, 23, maybe even 24. Long leash here for Leah. Should be about 5, 6, 7 years before a change is even considered. That's at least the way I would approach it. If you want your football program that's been very poor throughout all-time history to get on the right track, you need to give a long leash here. I'm going 2-10 this year. You told me you have Hawaii covering. Do you have them beating Hawaii week 1, or how do you see that game?
I actually do have Hawaii winning week 1. I think playing Coast with a time zone change, the travel, things like that, I think that gives Hawaii a distinct advantage, considering how complicated it is to get out there and all that goes on with it from your mind and body. I think it's a tough thing to do, open the season on the West Coast like that on Hawaii. I think that Hawaii is just going to be interesting with that offense, how they run that triple option. Should be interesting to see how it goes. I think 1-11 is really the prediction for me. They'll beat Elon, FCS program. They should beat an FCS program, right? This isn't like we're celebrating that. But you look at the rest of the schedule, getting Alabama as your draw from the West is just like a kick in the teeth for Vandy. I mean, that's a brutal thing to see for them, having to travel to Bryant-Denny when you already have to play a tough schedule in the East as well. This is a tough season across the board for Vandy, and I do like the direction the program is heading. I think that they have the right hire. I think their coach is the right coach. I love the recruiting work, and I think, like I said, with NIL, the type of money they have as a private school is very positive. I think they can start to increase their recruiting with the way that the money is now legalized in college football. But right now, it's going to be a tough maybe 2-3 years for this Vanderbilt program.
I have them starting 2-0 and then losing 10 in a row to end the season. I have them beating Hawaii because, and that's a good point. What you make, they have to travel, massive time zone difference. But at the same time, this is a Hawaii team that's also not very good. They had a lot of people transfer. The roster is very depleted. Even the coach's son transferred out, and now Todd Graham resigned at the top of the year because whatever he was doing there was not right. I guess the treatment of the players was not very good, but regardless, it's still a depleted roster where a lot of guys, I think 20 players transferred out. So depleted roster on a team that's already not that good. This is an SEC program. They should win that game. So I think you make a good point, but I'm going to take Vanderbilt there. Would you say that line's like 6.5? I think they'll win and they'll cover in that one, but very good point going on the road. It's going to be an interesting opportunity for Vanderbilt, but we'll see what happens. As always, Nick, I appreciate you joining me.
Yeah, line 6.5 last I saw in Vegas, but thank you for having me on, and should be an interesting season for the Commodores.
Yep, should be. I'm happy it's on August 27th because we'll actually watch that game. If it was week 1, then we wouldn't. But yeah, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.